I'm a little worried about is this wedge sort of shape. I'm just not sure if that's something I'm going to like, but I ordered it because I thought it was different and would be interesting as a different type of watch style. Welcome to another episode of Adventures with Time. I'm your host, Bob, and on this channel, I chronicle my experiences as a new watch collector. I certainly don't have the depth of knowledge that other YouTubers may have, but what I bring to you is my experiences as a new watch collector and how I go about building my collection and learning about this hobby. If that's something that is of interest to you, please subscribe and hit that bell icon so that you know every time I post a new video. On this episode, I go through the Straton Legera racing watch that I just received. Now, I ordered this on Kickstarter back in February of 2019, and now it's the middle of September, and I'm anxious to take a look at the watch and see if I like it. And as the title of this video suggests, I'm going to give you my opinion of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So stay tuned. Well, I don't usually do a total unboxing, but I think for this watch, I'll let you see my first impressions as I have them. So, let's get this puppy opened. So let's open this up. Nice rectangular case, zipper, and what I assume is a faux leather covering. So we got a section up here with some parts and the watch here. Now let me remind everybody, if you haven't seen the video I did when selecting this, and I'll put a link up here to that video. I ordered the Legera in the Bullhead style with the value movement. There was an option to get it both on a leather strap and an extra bracelet, and I went for that. My price was around $925, including shipping. That was the Kickstarter price. So let's take a look here. We've got this nice bracelet with, looks like here, we've got some screws for adjusting the links. The same on this side. Over here, we've got a little instruction manual that looks to cover all the different movement types, whether it be for the bullhead or the regular model, and whether it be the value movement or the other movement. And finally, we have what I assume is a tool. Now, on one end is a pusher device, and I got an email the day after I received the watch saying, actually warning us not to use this tool for adjusting the bracelet. It'll damage the bracelet. I assume people might think that it's a pusher tool for taking the pins out of the bracelet, but actually I showed you that the bracelet has little screws, so you need an appropriate screwdriver. And over here is a spring bar tool. Very nice of them to provide that. Okay, so now let's take a look at the watch itself. Now, I'm not going to give you my opinion on any of the watch features. I'm just going to go over the specs now, and then I'm going to wear it on the wrist for a week or so and come back and give you, as I said, the good, the bad, and the ugly, according to my opinion. So let's get a little closer view on this watch. So let's start out with the basic specs here. We have a diameter of the case at 42 millimeters. Now the thickness is going to vary depending on where and how you measure it. The basic measurement from the back of the case to the top of the somewhat domed sapphire crystal is 17 millimeters. But you can see here that the case actually dips down a few millimeters below that case back. And again, depending on how you measure it, this can be up to 21 millimeters on the bullhead side. Lugs are 22 millimeters. And again, the height, or what would normally be lug to lug, is somewhat problematic to measure itself. What I did and decided to do is measure from the bottom of this lug to the top of the crown, and that I get 51 millimeters. Now, speaking of the lugs, you can see that the bottom lug is what you might expect from a standard watch or watch design. The top lug for this bullhead is indented or buried underneath the head of the watch and somewhat concealed. And we'll talk a bit about that later and why that is. Now, the watch itself on this leather strap comes in at a hefty 132 grams. I would imagine that if you put it on the strap, that if you put it on the bracelet, it's going to come in over 200 grams. The case is stainless steel with mostly brushed finish. The only polish I see is on this chamfered edge around the watch head. Now, looking at the front of the watch, we have a slightly domed sapphire crystal that has AR coating on the inside of it, not the outside. And we have a bezel which also has a sapphire top to it, 12 hours, so you can either measure hours in this or actually use it for a second time zone. It is 120 clicks, unidirectional, nice and smooth. Once you put it in place, there's no wiggle room to it. And of course, the screw down crown and the pushers on this bullhead version are rotated to the 12 o'clock position, leaving the sides of the watch nice and clean. Now let's take a look at that dial. It's a black dial with a few fingerprints on the crystal with two major hands, hour and minute, nice and polished and beveled hands with some lume in there. I'll give you a lume shot later. The continuous second hand is down here in this subdial at the 6 o'clock hour. Again, black with white printing and this blue, light blue accent around it. Then you get to the chronograph function. We have a second hand in orange, very long, second hand for the chronograph. And then with this movement, you have the 30-minute subdial for the chronograph and then the hour subdial. So it's a 3, 6, 9, 12-hour subdial divided into 6 subdivisions between each of the major numbers. So every half hour on this subdial will be 1 tick mark on the hour subdial. Moving to the outside of the dial, we have markers for each of the hours. And then zooming real in, we have this racing band on the outside which divides for the second hand every second, and within every second there are subdivisions. Every other second is subdivided either on the outer orange portion of this track or on the inner portion of the track. And of course, right up here under the 12 o'clock position is the Straton logo, as it is on this signed screw down crown. Pushers are for start and stop and reset. Partially because of the screw down crown, this watch comes with 100 meter of water resistance. The lume is BGWG Super Luminova. Now let's talk about the movement. I ordered this with the ETA Valjoux 7750, which beats at 28,800 beats per hour, which gives the second hand a nice sweeping movement, but it's so small down here that it doesn't really make that much of a difference in my opinion. Looking at the back of the case, it's a screw down back with this nice wheel spoke racing rim, if you will, of a car back, again with the Straton logo right in the center. And along the outside, it's going to read Straton Watch, hidden under the leather strap, Company, Legera. And then this is actually the model number for all the Legeras, SWC006. So all the Legeras are model number 6. And then we have the depth rating of 10 ATM or atmospheres, which is roughly 100 meters. The strap that it comes on is this nice black leather racing strap with this orange accent stitching, orange on the inside, one fixed keeper and one moving keeper, fairly standard, and a signed buckle. Now let me zoom out and give you a view of how this appears on my wrist. So let's try this watch on my almost 8-inch wrist. Today's a little warm here, so it's probably closer to 8 inches than what I normally quote at about 7 7/8. And there you see it. It's a fairly nice size from my wrist. The buckle. And as you saw in the introduction, one of the things that concerned me about getting the Bullhead is the bulkiness of this watch, especially with the wedge shape and the thickness at the top end of the watch head. I just don't know how I'm going to feel about this. Now, I understand the rationale for doing this, at least I think I do, in that by having it thicker over here, it tilts the watch head up a bit at that end. That achieves two things. One is when you're looking at the watch, you don't have to twist your arm so much to get a straight on view of the dial. But I think more importantly what it does is it gives you free access, unencumbered access to these pushers. If the watch were flat over here, these pushers would be relatively close to your wrist and to the strap, and probably even more so to the bracelet if you had it on there, making it maybe a bit hard to accurately push these as you're timing something. So by lifting that up, it pulls these pushers away from your wrist, giving you clean access to that. And as I said, the operation here is one click to start, click the same to stop, and reset. Nice, solid feel, solid click to that movement. And now let me give you a loom shot of this watch and tell you that what I'm going to do now is wear the watch on my wrist with this leather racing strap for a week or so and come back and give you my opinion of the good, the bad, and the ugly of this Straton Legera Bullhead. So, stay tuned. I've been wearing this watch on my wrist now for about a week, and as a new watch, I've been giving it close attention. Its accuracy, the quality of the manufacturing, and especially to aesthetics. How I like the look of it from my vantage point, and how others view it. So let me jump in with what I see as the good aspects of this watch. I have seen no issues with the manufacturing of this watch. It has a high quality finish in all of its surfaces, whether that be the matte finish on the sides, the beveled edge that's highly polished, construction of the bezel and the pushers and the screw down crown, all the way down to the leather strap that's provided. And I see no issues with the dial itself. All the hands are aligned, all the printing and applied indices are on target, so I think they've done a great job putting this watch together. The next good attribute I'd like to point out is the accuracy and consistency of the ETA Valjoux 7750 movement itself. Every morning when I put on the watch, I check its time against a standard reference and see how much it's deviated each day. I've been getting a very consistent plus 5 seconds each day, well within the spec, I believe. And I've put the watch on a time grabber, first when it was right out of the box, and then a couple of times over the past week. And I've gotten very consistent results, as you can see here in this table. Over all 6 positions, the watch does not deviate in rate more than 6 seconds and ranges basically from 0 seconds to plus 6 seconds a day, right in line with what I've been measuring. So I certainly have no complaints with my selection of the Valjoux movement and am happy with the performance I've seen so far. A third area of this watch, which I've been very happy with, is the aesthetics of the face. And by face, I'm including the dial itself, the hands, and the bezel. I'm happy with the color pattern that I picked out. Looking at this watch is aesthetically pleasing to me. The outer orange second track, along with each of the blue accented subdials, really stands out against that dark black dial base. The minute and second hands are simply done with a nice bevel polished surface to it that gives a little accent as you're looking at it in different light. And a simple bezel with hours from 1 to 12 provides for functionality that doesn't detract or overwhelm from the dial. So I think it's a face that's going to be enjoyable to look at as well as attract inspection from others. Now let's turn our attention to what I consider bad elements of this watch. And there aren't that many, just a couple. The biggest issue I've noticed while wearing this watch over the past week is the amount of glare that comes off of the dial. Now it does have anti-reflective coating on the inside, and although I'm not a technical expert on anti-reflective coating, I do think it suffers a bit from not having it on the surface or outer side also. There are many positions and lighting scenarios that create a lot of reflection off the watch crystal, sometimes making it hard to see the hands and especially the smaller subdials. I don't know if it's just the lack of reflective coating on the outer surface or combination of that with the slightly domed sapphire dial. But I find this watch, greater than any other watch I have in my collection, as throwing off a lot of glare or reflection. The only other negative or bad aspect that I'll state about this watch is its tendency to slip or rotate around the wrist. And I find this more with this watch than any other watch in my collection. And as all watch wearers know, our wrists change in size during the day depending on temperature and humidity. And when the strap is fitting a little loose on the wrist, the watch tends to slip in the direction of the bullhead. And although, as I said, this does happen with other watches, I find it happening much more with this Legera Bullhead. Now, I haven't tried this with the bracelet, but I imagine it has similar issues. So it's just one of those annoyances that I have to deal with. Now to the ugly. When I tried this watch on right out of the box, I was struck with its clunky appearance, especially viewing it from the side. The watch head has a colossal appearance. Having never really seen many bullhead watches, specifically those with this wedge shape, I was a bit taken back. But a bullhead orientation, although not the norm for watches, does exist in many manufacturers' catalogs, both major and micro brands. This includes the likes of Breitling, Omega, Seiko, Bulova, Formex, and many others. As best as I can tell, bullhead watch designs first appeared around the 1960s. Take, for example, the Omega reference 146.01, introduced in 1969. This chronograph has its crown and pushers at the 12 o'clock position, similar to the Legera. Although the Omega Bullhead is more angular than the Legera, when viewed face-on, my Legera seems to have a greater wedge shape to its side than the Omega. And when it comes to looking bulky, I think the Formex TS375 is much chunkier than the Legera. So is it ugly? I don't think so. I'm starting to really enjoy this watch. But I'd like to get your opinion. Please do let me know your thoughts on this bullhead design in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button. And don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell icon so you'll be notified as soon as I post my next video.